This helps me so much to think about our marriage this way.
They don't realize how powerful a marriage can be.
Right. Strong, healthy marriages will change the world.
I'm like still scarred by that moment. You're listening to Let's Get Naughty,
a podcast for real talk and honest conversations about all things relationships and marriage. The good, the bad, and the naughty.
Whether you're already married, almost married, or wanting to get married, we're here to help you build a solid foundation for a love that lasts. Let's get naughty, y'all.
All right, welcome back, y'all. If you missed last week's episode, we shared 4 of the things we wish we knew before we got married. And this episode is going to be a part 2. So we had so much to say that we figured it needed to be split into 2 episodes. So if you haven't listened to last week's, I would recommend press pause, go back, and then come back here.
Yeah, we shared 4. Do you want to read those off to what we had?
I don't have them right here. Okay, I remember them though. Conflict is not failure.
Yes.
What's number 2?
Why am I blanking?
Oh, marriage won't fix your problems.
Yeah.
Comparison is the thief of joy. And humility is always the answer. Let's dive in. We're going to just pick right back up with number 5. Things we wish we knew before we got married.
Yes, number 5.
Okay, number 5 is who you surround yourself with has a bigger influence on your marriage than you think.
When you get married, you're like, well, I'm just going to keep all my same friends. And all of my single friends are going to be my friends when I'm married. And another one is family, right?
Oh my gosh.
We're really close with our families and we talk to our families all the time and they're our best friends. And then we get married and then we think we can just talk to our families the same way about our relationships that we can before we're married.
Yeah, I feel like this one, there's like 10 layers to this because I have so many things to say. Like we have a lot of advice that we share with what you do and don't say to your parents about your spouse once you get married, single friends, and like the way that your relationship changes with your friends who aren't married once you're married. Like there's so many layers to this. But I feel like maybe for the purpose of just this episode right now, just understanding that like who you surround yourself with, the way that they talk about your marriage, the influence that they have on you, how much they support your marriage, and then also just like other married people and the way that they talk about each other, talk to each other, who you surround yourself with, and then who you go to be counsel to your marriage, like who you allow to speak into your marriage and who you share your junk with. All of that matters so much.
Yeah, I mean, that's the biggest thing is when you go talk to other people, they have an influence on what you believe about your marriage, what you believe about your spouse, and then how you're going to handle things with your spouse.
Yeah.
And so you want people who are going to build up your marriage and encourage you to be the best husband, the best wife that you can be in your marriage.
Yeah.
And so that's just something to be aware of is when you get married, you're still going to keep all of your same friends, but the level of influence and how close they are might shift a little bit.
Sure. And how you talk about your marriage, who you share about your marriage to, and what you say, how you share, and what you invite for them to speak back to you, that matters a lot. And that's something we for sure had to learn. Like we didn't have bad friends before we got married. We have amazing community and people around us and great people. But we definitely had to learn once we got married that we had to invite the right kinds of people into our lives and those became the people that we share our messiness with, that like get to be a part of our lives, who as we kind of use the silly terminology because who even knows what this means, but it is what we call it. Like the people that we do life with, like the people who we walk with on a daily, weekly basis, who know intimately what we're struggling with in our marriage, what we're walking through, the people that we invite into that, we had to learn once we got married, like how to do that, how to kind of have boundaries around sharing certain things with people who it's not that you can't share about hard things in your marriage with people, like, at all. We're not saying that, but just like who you invite into your marriage to then like speak back into your
who
conflicts
are your advisors,
and
right?
like that really matters. And so one of the pieces of advice that has blessed us a ton that we like to share is that Cashmere and I are both really cognizant of sharing about our marriage with like specifically like our hardships, our conflict, like things that we're working through. We share that with people who we have actively chosen or given permission to hold us accountable, to speak back in and give us counsel and admonishment. We have invited those people in, and we know that they are committed to helping us be unified as a couple, as a married couple, more than they are either of us on our own.
Yeah, and I think that is such an important point right there. And that's really the test, right?
Right.
I think that's the test to differentiate between people who should be advisors and hold large amounts of influence over your marriage and inner workings of your marriage. Are they more for your marriage than for you as an individual?
Exactly.
Right? So this is why we talk about, friends that are single, or parents, right? Like parents are the easiest example because my parents are great and they, have a lot of wisdom and they're really kind and they would love to help with anything that they can. But my parents' problem is if I brought up that Molly and I had a conflict, and even if I presented the conflict fairly to them, they are going to always take my side because they just know me. They're so biased, right? And they're going to assume that Molly's the one at fault.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, even if they're in, I think it's important to say that doesn't mean that your parents have to be off the table for being those people, because some people have relationships with their parents where they can be those people. But you want to know that your parents are going to, in their counsel and advisement, they're going to help you come together as a couple more than they are just to like seek your betterment, whatever that means, right? Like,
and just to even add color to that, I think early on in our relationship and marriage, I would say I was probably more careful in that, where now my parents probably take Molly's side just by default because they love Molly naturally so much. And she's obviously such a great person. And
I love.
I mean, a fair assumption is, Kesha, what are you doing wrong here? So
no, I mean, so again, I don't think that means that family or single friends have to be off the table from like knowing what's going on in your life. Or like, I for sure have told single friends who aren't married yet, like about hard things that we've walked through. Like, I want them to know what marriage is really like, and I've been willing to share, but I don't invite them into like giving me counsel on how to work through a conflict with you, because they're just not bought into our unity more than they are like me getting my way.
Yeah, absolutely.
So for us, I mean, I think we can share. We have a community group with our church that we have chosen to do life with, as we call it.
Such like a
I know
churchy term,
colloquial,
isn't it?
Yeah. But like what that means for us is to actively walk through seasons of life together where we are sharing the good, the bad, and the ugly, the good, the bad, and the naughty.
Hey.
And most importantly, those three couples are more Team Mason than they are Team Molly or Cashmere. And that's what matters.
A good sign of someone who's going to advise you well in marriage is going to be someone who, when you bring an issue up, are going to say, what's your role in this? And how do you improve your role?
Yep.
And the conversation from an advisor should be focused on you. Draw the circle around yourself. That's one of our favorite phrases. Yep. You're going to hear that a lot. And just focus on, how can I be better in this conflict? And that's what someone should be speaking into.
Yep. I shared an example of like our structured way that we do that with community groups at our church, but we still have people outside of our church, like just friends that we know are kind of that safe place for us to share, because we know that they're going to help us be better as a married couple more than they are like just going to sit by and not actually help us seek unity. And so just be so discerning of who you surround yourself with and who you let speak into your marriage. And again, there's so many layers to this. More podcast episodes to come on these topics because there's a lot of layers. But
yeah, but if you're single or engaged and that's where you're at, or even if you're married, I would just start to look around you and say, hey, what couples are pursuing marriage well?
Right.
And what couples can care more about our marriage than us individually, and be active in reaching out to those people
and have those
just start those conversations.
Exactly. Like maybe this concept is so foreign to you, and you're, like you said, if you're already married, but you're hearing us talk about this and you're like, holy smokes, like that is not who we're surrounded with. And you're kind of having that realization. It is never too late to start that with relationships you already have. Like, go to your friends, go to your other favorite couple you like to double date with. And the next time just be like, hey, can we like really challenge each other to make sure when we are sharing about our marriages that we're really encouraging each other to seek unity and reconciliation and oneness more than just allowing each other to complain about our annoying husbands or wives. I get so fired up about this because I see this as a predominant relationship advice that I think is absolutely terrible. I'm not going to share who it is because that just doesn't seem helpful. But there was a very popular relationship advice podcast. One day I went to listen to an episode. Literally within the first 5 minutes of the first episode, I'm hearing the advice was to make sure that you have husbands or wives around you that you can just like go vent to about your spouse. And that's the perfect example of why we want to share this, because we think that that is terrible advice.
Yeah, that's terrible advice.
That's terrible advice. And that's not who you should be surrounding yourself with. It's just not fruitful. Like, it's not fruitful. Be discerning. Yeah, be discerning of who you surround yourself with. More to come on that topic. Like I said, we have a lot to say, but we'll leave it at that for now. Number 6. This is a really good one. This might be my favorite.
Ooh.
I don't know. I have a few favorites in this list for sure. Number 6, your spouse is not the enemy.
That sounds so simple.
It sounds so simple and obvious, but it is so important to learn and something to continually remind yourself of.
Absolutely. When we have conflict, it's so easy to see the person that we have conflict with as being your enemy. They are the army you're fighting against. Yes.
Yeah. As believers, we believe that there is an enemy who is out to seek, kill, and destroy. Who seeks, I said seek, kill, and destroy. He seeks to steal, kill, and destroy. Here's what's important to know, and this helps me so much to think about our marriage this way. Marriage is truly one of the most powerful tools we can yield for the kingdom. Like, you and I being married, being unified, loving each other sacrificially, selflessly, serving one another, being a unit, that is truly one of the most powerful ways to bring God glory and to bring light into a dark world. You better believe that the enemy of our souls does not want us to be unified and have a healthy marriage, right? Like, no question. That is one of the top things that he is out to steal, kill, and destroy is healthy marriages. And I'm telling you, one of the ways that he really tries to do that is by making me believe that you are my enemy.
Yeah, I mean, that's something you see all over the place. People are so focused on fighting each other, they don't realize how powerful a marriage can be.
Right.
That two people, when they become one in marriage, are now more powerful and can do more together than they could have separated.
Right.
And so that's just the biggest thing. And I mean, just look around it. Look at how many broken relationships are. Just the missing opportunity just to be unified. And what we look at is we say, this is the army I need to fight. But what we don't realize is that our spouse is in the foxhole with us, and that we are fighting together.
We're a team.
We're fighting for, against an enemy. We're fighting for our dreams, for our families, for the people around us. We just believe that marriages can make a difference in this world.
Oh, yeah. I mean, no questions. Then that is literally why we are here. That is why Not It exists and why this podcast exists, because we believe that. We fundamentally believe that strong, healthy marriages will change the world and can bring light into a dark world. I cannot tell you how helpful it is for me to remind myself, Kashmir is not my enemy. The enemy is my enemy. Anytime I catch myself getting frustrated at you, like being in conflict with you, catch myself slipping into those thoughts of like being at war with you, I just remind myself that Kashmir is not my enemy. The enemy is my enemy. The enemy is our enemy, right? Like we are a team. Let's stop letting quarrels among us keep us from the bigger battle that we're actually in. And so that perspective is so helpful.
And don't just look at your partner as your teammate, but what is your common mission? What are your common goals or dreams? Because that is such a unifying force as well, to not just have your spouse not be your enemy, but to be by your side when you guys are together
on a common mission
and on a common mission. Like that is a very unifying experience, and something that as we've dreamed and as we've pursued businesses and tried different things, and not everything's worked out or been well, but it's been a unifying experience to have a similar mission.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, that is a really powerful tool to just remind you of that concept, that you're on the same team and you're fighting for something together.
All right. So number 7 is to manage your expectations.
Honey, this is so important.
So this is such a broad topic that we could do just so many lessons around, but expectations are one of the biggest parts of if we experience joy and happiness or disappointment and frustration. One of the things that we see is that couples don't have enough conversations or understanding around their expectations. One, because they probably just don't know to have these conversations. And so that's one of our key parts that we do in Ready to Not, which is our premarital course. It's just a whole opportunity to discuss expectations.
Ready to Not is literally built to help you have conversations about your expectations that you wouldn't think to have on your own. Because this is something we say about expectations all the time. Often you don't know you have them until they go unmet. You like to give the example of birthdays.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so let me tell you about Molly's birthday.
Oh.
So right after we got married, okay, so first you have to understand me. I'm very introverted, and my perfect birthday is if no one ever knew it was my birthday and I could like sneak through work without ever like being celebrated. So and then I went to a dinner with my wife, and I would be so happy with that. And then no one would sing to me or praise me. Like one of the things I'm scarred by is there was one of my birthdays in college. There was a girl who we all went to dinner. Yes, her name's Katie.
I love when she does this.
And she made the entire
Katie, we love you.
Table go around and say something they were thankful for me for. Oh, I hated that moment in time. It was just like, I'm like still scarred by that moment.
So ridiculous how much you hate that. See, that is what I want on my birthday.
That is what Molly wants on her birthday. I think this was like 2 years into marriage, and I don't remember what was going on, but we had a big trip coming up. I think it was a wedding. And it was Molly's birthday, and we had all this going on, and we're like, okay, well, we're just a little too busy. And I was like, hey, Molly, like, what do you want to do? And she's like, oh, it's no big deal. Like, let's just not do a lot. And so I was like, great. All right, we're going to celebrate her birthday just like I would like my birthday celebrated. And so
you took me out to dinner.
We took her out to dinner. I think I gave her a card. She doesn't like gifts. We're
Right.
not big gift people, and we're going on trips, and that's how we like to celebrate. And so we go to dinner. I'm sweet. It's this nice dinner. We come home. I did a great job, and we get into bed, and then there's just tears.
Yeah, because here's the thing about me. I don't necessarily desire to be the center of attention. Like, I don't need to make a big hoopla about my birthday. But until I had the first birthday in my life where I like didn't see my friends, I didn't realize how much I desired just to like be with my people, and just like I just feel loved when I get to see my friends on my birthday, you know? Like, so
So the following year,
it
I
happened
like
again.
sat down and I was like, okay, Molly, like last year was a failure. Let's make sure we make this birthday great. And I don't know what it was. Like, this was a little while ago, so don't remember. But I was like, we got to do something. And she's like, no, like we don't have time or the space to do something. And I'm like, no, we got to do something. And she's like, no, it's really okay. I was like, all right, it's okay.
I think this is the year that I finally was able, it took me a couple years to be like, oh, I have the expectation, like I have the desire to celebrate with my people on my birthday.
So 2 years of tears. And then now when her birthday comes, okay, it is July currently, and her birthday is in November. And I'm already terrified to not plan something
that's not
well.
True.
It's not something I do well as planned. The whole point of the
story is that I didn't know I had an expectation of celebrating my birthday a certain way until that expectation went unmet, and I was disappointed by it.
And this is such a basic example, but this happens in everything in marriage, from the smallest to the largest, whether it's who does the laundry or does those things, to how do I expect my husband to show me love, to how do we resolve conflict, and what does conflict look like,
to how often are we going to see and talk to our parents,
how often do we have sex, how many kids are we going to have. And that's one of those things where not having a structure to have these conversations, and not being intentional and having conversations. If a couple gets married, one of the partners says, oh, I don't really want kids, and the other, well, I want 3, and they're just going to change their mind because they said, I think I don't want kids.
Right.
And then they go to have, one couple or one of the partners says, okay, it's time to have kids. And the other's like, no, like I feel called to not have kids. That is something we see that leads to a lot of heartbreak and frustration. And so that's just something that we really encourage, is to sit down and go through some of your expectations. And there's different ways to do this. We love how we've structured this and Ready to Not, but just to sit down and have a conversation and to explore what your expectations that you know off of the top of your head, and then just the ones that maybe you don't even realize you have. And we have a lot of those.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. We have expectations about every area of our marriage without even realizing it, just because we've been informed by either what we saw with our parents or what we've consumed through media. Like, you're going to have, everyone has expectations, whether they're good or bad or unrealistic or not, but being able to communicate those as much as humanly possible before you get married is going to set you up on such a better foot to start your marriage with than going into marriage like not discussing these things and then just continually missing each other on your expectations and having to start from that deficit.
Well, I think also, just I wanted to add this, for the married couples out there, if you guys are when you guys get frustrated or have a disagreement, I think it's really good to like stop and say, okay, what was my expectation that was missed that led to this frustration? Because that's a way to get to a root cause and to look at why there's frustration. And that frustration and anger is one of the reasons why we want you to start at the expectations if possible, but you can also do that in reverse.
Exactly. So if you're not married yet, definitely invest the time in these structured conversations beforehand. We cannot stress that enough, how helpful that is. And that's what we created Ready to Not for. But if you're already married and you're like, well, it's too late, it's not too late. One, you can still have those conversations, but two, just learn how to start expressing it. That's something that I had to learn because I feel like we definitely need to do a whole podcast episode on the Enneagram. I think I've already mentioned that I'm a 2 and Cashmere's an 8, but part of what I've learned about myself that I've been able to put words to since learning about the Enneagram is that I struggle a lot with expressing my own needs. So for me, I had to really practice the muscle of just, if Cashmere did miss an expectation I had, now it's pretty simple for me to say, hey, I was expecting you to do this for some reason. This is how I thought this was going to go down. I feel a little disappointed. And then be open to say, like, was this unreasonable, or is it okay for me to ask you to do this? And then we can have a conversation about it. And then moving forward, we're on the same page about that expectation. So as much as you can talk about things beforehand, but even if you talk about everything before you get married, you're still going to have missed expectations in your marriage because that's just how life works. And so learning that muscle of being able to express them and recognize them in yourself, right? Like that's part of the muscle. It's
Absolutely.
just like, for me, for my birthday, as that example, I had to learn, like, wait, I'm sad the night of my birthday because I had an expectation I didn't realize I had, and then expressing it. And then being able to talk with Cashmere, like, was this reasonable or was it not? And like, how can we move forward more aligned with meeting each other's expectations? Look, y'all, with divorce rates near 50%, there is no question getting married is one of the biggest decisions you'll ever make.
That is why we created Ready to Not, our premarital course to help you build a solid foundation for a lasting marriage.
You'll take the world's leading relationship assessment, get a personalized report on the strengths and growth areas of your relationship, and watch lessons where we help you understand your results and give you tools and exercises to grow in 9 different areas.
This is designed to give you structure to have the important conversations you need to have and to get clear on your expectations in everything from finances to family, conflict, sex, roles, faith, and so much more.
Research has proven that investing your time in a course like this will increase your marriage success rate by 30%. Don't just prepare for your wedding day. Invest time preparing for the lifelong marriage that will follow it.
And if you're already married, can we just say that this would make an amazing wedding gift? With Ready to Not, we'll help you move into marriage with clarity and confidence.
And a special discount just for Let's Get Naughty listeners, go to nottedmarriage.com/ready-to-not and use code LGK25 for $25 off. That's nottedmarriage.com/READYTOKNOT and use code LGK25 for $25 off.
Now back to the episode.
Okay, number 8. This one I definitely had to learn in marriage. Don't try to make your spouse who you think you want them to be. And with that, like, learn to celebrate who they are and how God made them, and stop trying to manipulate them into the picture of what you want in your head. Have you struggled with this, or is this just a me thing?
I think it's something you're more aware of. I think I probably
it's probably because
struggle with
I've met every expectation you had.
Yeah, you're amazing.
I'm kidding, obviously.
No, I think we all have pictures of what we expect.
Yeah.
And it can be from family. You know, I think a great comparison is like, what was my mom like? What was your dad like?
Right.
And then every way that you're not like that, I think to say, well, why aren't you more like this?
Yeah.
Like, my mom is a gourmet cook and Molly's a great cook, but I would say I'm more of a gourmet cook than you
I'm
are.
I want to use as few ingredients and make as little mess as I can. Let's keep it simple kind of cook.
Yeah, Molly's version of cooking is let's like not use any seasoning and spices. And
well, that's another issue.
My goal is to make it as flavorful as possible.
Yeah.
And so that's just like something that I knew, but might have been something that I could have said, hey, I want you to become more like my mom in this.
Yeah. Yeah. And I follow this up after the last one about understanding your expectations, because your expectations really inform who you think you want your spouse to be. But I think what I had to learn in that was that extra layer. I have heard a lot of women share this, that women can tend to struggle with like trying to nag their husband and like just try to like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like manipulate his behavior into what you want. That is not fruitful. Like if I am desiring change in you because I'm not seeing you live up to your potential or whatever area of that you want to look at. But if I'm desiring change in you early in our marriage, I would try to get that change to happen in you by like kind of trying to control you. And I had to learn that is not helpful. Like that is not, you don't respond well to that.
No.
It's not good for either of us. And it's not helpful for my heart to just be trying to change you. And so I really felt the Lord convict me into like, I feel like I heard the Lord just tell me like, hey, it's my job to change him. Like, let me do work in him. You step back and give me some room. And I've really learned there's two layers to that. One, I've learned to pray for you instead of try to tell you what to do. And two, I've learned through praying for you, if I do desire change in you, by praying for that, I feel like it gives the Lord the chance to work in my heart and help me see you how he sees you. And I pray for that all the time. I ask the Lord, like, Lord, if I'm like just feeling annoyed with Cashmere or wish he would do something differently, I'm like, Lord, help me see him how you see him, and help me have eyes to see the good and the beauty in him and all the great virtues that you have built in him, because he is wonderful. So I can instead get focused on these things I wish were different. Like kind of just having those open hands, not trying to change your spouse, but instead like praying for them and just letting the Lord do that and celebrating them and seeing the good in them and building them up from that perspective. Like that's something I've learned, is just that like speaking life over you, calling out good things in you, and sometimes just literally affirming you for things you're not even doing yet, but like speaking that life over you and letting you rise to that instead of like coming from this like nagging place of telling you what to do and wishing you were different. That has been super powerful. I don't think you've struggled with that as much as I have.
Yeah.
But that is for sure something I wish I knew.
No, I think that's a great example. I think trying to control your spouse is so common. And,
Yeah.
Trying to, I think we can try and nag and tear certain things down rather than build them up and help encourage them as a whole to be the best version that God has built and wants them to be.
Mm-hmm.
It might not be the image in your head that you want them to be.
Right. Yeah. Instead of just continually trying to get your spouse to fit that image in your head, ask the Lord to help you change the image in your head of who they actually are and who God wants them to be and who God created them to be.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Ask God to give you the eyes that he has to see your spouse.
Yeah.
I think that can really help and change your perspective.
Yeah, for sure.
So the final point that we would like to express about what we wish we would have known before we got married is that love is an action and not a feeling. Now, I feel like this is such a cliche because we've all heard this and everyone says it's an action, not a feeling. I think what a lot of people expect from this is that they are going to build these feelings of love, and then the love feelings are going to lead to the action.
Yeah.
And honestly, that's just like not true, because
it can happen that way.
I mean, it can.
Like when I am feeling when I'm feeling strong feelings of love and affection for you, that does come through in me desiring to give you actions of love, like show that through actions.
Yeah, I
but
think
you
I think
can't
that's a
rely on that.
Yeah, I think that's probably a great nuance there.
Right.
Is you can feel that way, but that's not a foundation, right? Because
Right.
there's going to be times when those feelings aren't there.
Right.
And you're not going to have butterflies and deep feelings of love. But what you can always do is you can always build your love through actions and serving your partner and your spouse. And what people often associate, again, is the feelings turning to actions.
Mhm.
But really, if you want to build a sustainable love, you should be doing those love actions regardless of how you feel.
Yep.
And then those actions will build feelings inside of you.
Yeah, they cultivate feelings of love. Yeah, so I talk about this a lot in regards to my other work with women and body image. So I say all the time, like, I want to challenge you to love your body. I'm not saying, I think when we think that and we hear culture say, like, love yourself, love your body, we hear like, oh, I should like have feelings of affection towards my body. That's not what I mean. Like, not the noun of love towards your body, but the action, the verb of honoring your body, nourishing it well, caring for it. That is the action of loving your body. And because if I just relied on looking in the mirror and feeling affection towards my body and then choosing actions of honoring and nourishing, I don't always feel that way. Like, it's the action of love. It's the verb of love that I have to cultivate, whether or not the feelings are there. And so I think that applies exactly in marriage too. It's like the idea that love, the verb of love, often has to come before the noun of love. And yeah, you're exactly right. Our culture has taught us that we come into marriage with the noun of love, the feelings, the affection, the adoration, and we expect that to sustain us, and it won't. But it can grow because of the action.
Yeah, I mean, this really makes me think of something that I've struggled with is like public speaking, and I'm very dyslexic when I start speaking, and I get all tongue tied and things like that. And something that I remember, I watched a TED Talk on this.
Really?
Yeah,
I haven't heard you share this.
And I remember just learning that when you're going into a situation, if it's an interview or public speaking, where you need to project confidence, then you like make yourself physically big and you do physical postures like making yourself big, and it helps build your confidence and it leads to actions of confidence. And so there's like a lot of science behind your actions will lead to your feelings.
Yeah.
Like, this is a very scientifically based theory, right? And so I think just like looking at marriage and just being willing to say, hey, I'm going to do these actions and my feelings aren't going to be the conditional point of if I do these actions or not.
Yeah. And what we have learned in our marriage and we have shared with couples, sometimes they're like struggling to show love towards their spouse and seek reconciliation and like move towards their spouse because the feelings aren't there. Like, they're feeling hurt and disappointed and they're not feeling the affection, the feeling. And so they're like, well, I therefore can't complete the action that's required. But it's like, the feelings are never going to come if you don't take action. Like, you guys are just going to continue to sit here on opposite sides of the spectrum, like being hurt by each other and mad at each other, if one of you doesn't come with action before feelings to reconcile and seek unity and come together. And then I can guarantee you that's going to build those affections. Like I kind of shared earlier when you were mentioning humility, and like I shared that if we're kind of in conflict and I'm kind of building myself up in my stubbornness and you come to me with humility, that is so disarming. Like, my walls fall down and I desire to seek to reconcile with you because it helps open those feelings up. That's just one example, but you just have to know in marriage that sometimes the actions have to come without the feelings. And hopefully the actions will help build the feelings, but you just can't rely on the feelings.
I think this is just one of those just concepts that if you start to practice, it's amazing. And it plays out in reality. Another thing that studies have shown is that couples who are like unhappy and wanting to get divorced, right? And if they stay together, I don't remember what the
I think it's if they stay together
5 years,
within 5 years, 90% of them are like happy and are glad that they stuck together and are now in a happy marriage, because it forces you through that action, and then the feelings come.
Yeah. And so I think just changing, one of our beliefs is that there's not just a single person you can marry, and that there's not this big romantic single person.
We need to do a whole episode on
this
that.
is a whole episode.
Finding the one.
But we don't think that there's one. We think that there's a lot of people that you could find to marry and have a successful marriage, and it's are you willing to do the actions that will lead to love in your relationship?
Yeah. I'm very thankful that the majority of our marriage, I have woken up with feelings of love for you. Like, I love you and I feel love for you. But there have been seasons and days where like I'm not feeling that because we're going through hard things, or you just annoy me. Never. But like, if I put all my weight in the feelings, then there would have been so many moments in our marriage where I would have gone, holy smokes, I'm in the wrong marriage because my feelings aren't there. Like, that's absolutely not true. Like, there has not been a single day, even on the days when I haven't felt like you're the most incredible man in the whole entire world. It doesn't mean that I'm in the wrong marriage. It means that I need to dig in deep and grow closer with you.
I mean, obviously, we all know that feelings aren't reliable, because if you're feeling that, I mean, clearly that's not right.
Of course. I mean, I was just going crazy. Don't worry. Okay. With that, I might have changed my mind. Number 9 might be my favorite. I don't know. I have a few favorites, but that was a good one.
Yeah.
Don't you think that if there was just a single one of these 9 that you could tell someone before they got married, that would be a big one for sure. Like, if you came into marriage knowing that sometimes actions have to come before feelings, that changes a lot.
Yeah. I think that is such a countercultural idea.
Yeah, exactly.
And not just the idea. I think everyone's heard that, but just like thinking through what that looks like on a daily basis in your relationship, that is so different than what the world says. And so I think such a key concept to having a successful marriage. All right. So those are our 9.
I cut multiple out. Like, I could probably list 20 or more, which is why we're starting a podcast, because we have a lot to say about marriage. But those are our 9 things we wish we knew before we got married.
Yeah. And so are there any ones that you think we should have talked about?
Yeah. What would you add to the list? We'd love to hear. If you're already married, what would you add to your list of things you wish you knew?
Yeah. Or what are your questions?
Yeah. If you guys have questions about these, like I said, every single one of these 9, we could probably do an entire episode on, because we have so much to say. But if you have any particular of those that stood out to you that you'd love to hear us all dive in deeper on, we'd love y'all to contribute to that too. So we are going to be doing an episode where we react to good and bad relationship advice. So a lot of that's kind of tied into some of these things we talked about. So we'd love to hear from you guys on that. What is good or bad relationship advice you've been given? And we can dissect that in a future episode. So let us know on that.
Yeah. So if you're on YouTube, go ahead and comment below. If you're listening to this on another platform, you can see us on Instagram. We will have a post up for this at Knotted Marriage.
Look at you Instagram pro.
Yeah.
Are you actually going to run our Instagram account now?
No, I will not.
You'll be on it sometimes, right?
So if anyone replies from at knottedmarriage.com, it's definitely not me.
We'll see. I'll try to get you on there.
Okay, maybe I'll reply to one person. That's going to be exhausting, though.
We'll see. I think you might enjoy it. If you start talking to the people and they want to hear from you, we'll see. Guys, make sure you comment and tell Cashmere he needs to get on the gram. Bring him over to the dark side. You guys got to help me get him over there.
That would take a lot of work.
Yeah. So we can't wait to keep the conversation going with you guys. We're going to love continuing this in the comments. I really genuinely can't wait to hear what other people have to say about what they wish they knew before they got married. So with that, I think that's it for today.
That's a podcast.
We'll see you guys next week.
Thanks so much for hanging out with us for another episode of Let's Get Naughty.
Remember to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. And if you want more encouragement, join us on Instagram and YouTube at Knotted Marriage to check out all the other resources we have to help you build a tighter marriage. If this conversation encouraged you in any way, please consider leaving us a review on whatever platform you're listening and posting a screenshot on social media. That support means more than you know and really helps us reach more couples.
We'll see you for next week's episode. Go get naughty.